Necturus. And the bird especially is simple, drippy, but yeah, the feathers are annoying because they soak up all the juice and then they just drip. And this is not the most beautiful dissection. This just happened to be one of the pigeons that was in the bucket. It had already been cut open, but I was able to at least find the muscles that I wanted to see. And there's really only two muscles we're looking at. There's the muscle that flaps the wing down, which, what would we call that movement? Adduction, or sometimes it's called depression of the wings in birds, for whatever reason historically. And then there's the one that does this, lifts the wing up, abduction or elevation of the wing. And the main muscle you see when you look at the breast of a bird is the pectoralis muscle. That's this big one right here. That's the chicken breast, if you eat chicken, the main part of it anyway. And that's the main down flapping muscle, so the main adductor of the wing. It runs from the sternum up to the humerus. Okay. What's kind of strange is that the muscle that's involved in elevating the wing is also located ventrally here, and it's this very deep part of the muscles. I know I'm joking. Thanks for the word. This one right here, that lies under the pectoralis, and it lies right in that little notch or nook between the keel of the sternum and the plate of the sternum. And so when you're eating a chicken breast, if you're a carnivore, you know how you'll just kind of peel away the main part, and then there's that last little bit lying there, right, nestled into that space. That's this muscle, and that's the supracoracoideus muscle, which we've met already in Necturus as well, supracoracoideus. And the supracoracoideus is the main elevator of the wing, but it's located ventrally. So how does that work? Well, its tendon, I'll tell you, its tendon goes up through this hole here. This is called the foramen triosium. So that suggests there's 3 bones involved. And the idea is what those 3 bones might be.
Scapular, clavicle.
Scapula, clavicle, and what else is humerus? Not humerus, but
acromion, interclavicle.
yes. Coracoid. Let's try coracoid. All right, so scapula, coracoid, and it pops through on the top, and you can see that its tendon coming over the top of the humerus, of the head of the humerus, right here. Do you see this white band right there? That's the tendon of the supracoracoideus coming out of the foramen triosium and attaching to the top of the head of the humerus. Can you see that? I'm trying to drip over my tray.
Can you show also the muscles that, or the muscle that results in
this muscle, the supracoracoideus muscle,
yeah.
is this one right
here.
Okay. The tendon goes up through there. And so that's how you can have an elevator of the wing, abductor located ventrally, because its tendon goes up. And the story is that that really helps birds by giving them a low center of mass of gravity, so it helps stabilize them in flight, to have all of this muscle mass ventrally, not have anything dorsally. Bats, on the other hand, have their elevators up dorsally, and they seem to fly just fine. So, you know, it's got that loose that works well for birds. Oops, kind of juicy, this bird. Okay, so that's it for the birds. 2 muscles, 1 hole. That's all. But still, I just wanted to make sure you guys had some idea of how birds manage to fly, what the main muscles are. Okay, then frogs. Frogs jump. And the main muscles involved in jumping are the hind limb muscles and then some of the epaxial muscles. And the muscles I asked you to learn are 2 parts of the epaxial musculature. There's this more medial part here, and this is the longissimus dorsi right here. And just lateral to that here is the iliolumbaris that runs to the end of the ilium. So, okay, longissimus dorsi and iliolumbaris. There's also, and those are just epaxial muscles that kind of extend the frog like this. There's also muscles, though, that run from the inside of the ilia, from the pelvis, to the urostyle, which is that long, fused section of caudal vertebrae that runs right down the middle, from that bump in the middle of the back of the frog. And this muscle that runs there from ilium to urostyle is called the coccygeal iliacus. Coccygeal iliacus is this guy here, one on either side. And those are really important also for extending the back as part of the jumping mechanism of the frog. Then there's the actual limb muscles. And the main one on the front of the thigh is this thing here. This is called the triceps femoris, which is the three-headed muscle of the thigh. And that corresponds to the quadriceps muscle of mammals, which is the big muscle on the front of our thigh. And that one is the main muscle that extends the knee in jumping. There's also this one that runs along the back side here. This is one of the hamstring muscles, and this is the semimembranosus. Okay. And that extends the hip joint. Okay. Or retracts the femur at the hip, would be another way to put it. On the medial ventral surface, there's another muscle that kind of runs in parallel with the semimembranosus, and that's the gracilis. So that's this muscle here, and that's also basically a retractor or extensor of the hip joint. Okay. And these muscle names, for what it's worth, are names you'll see again in mammals. In fact, they've been applied to frogs from mammals, and sometimes maybe incorrectly. We'll worry about that later. There's a muscle on the back of the calf here, and this is the main muscle that extends the ankle, and basically, again, it's pushing the foot down, so this is a jumping off muscle. And this is the gastrocnemius muscle. That's this guy here. And again, we have that same muscle in us, mammals. We're almost done. I gave you as a separate name this part of the triceps femoris. That there's three heads. This is the one that runs right along the front of the thigh, and this is called the rectus anticus femoris here. And that just comes up in the discussion, so I gave it to you as a separate muscle, but it's part of that whole triceps group. And then last but not least, there's this little muscle. Got a feather on this frog. This little muscle that runs down from the ilium to the femur, this guy right here. And that is the gluteus muscle, it's the butt muscle. And that's also basically an extension of the hip. And that would be it for the frog. How are I on time?
About 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay, this is about how it works with the last group. So I'll tell you the same thing I told them. We'll finish up going over the Necturus muscles at the beginning of the next lab, because I know you guys want to see them all, but let me at least give you kind of the start on it. So this guy is very nice because he's a very big Necturus and easy to see. And you can see that Necturus does have myomeres, just like a shark does, segmental muscles with myocepta between. And it's also got a division here between the epaxial muscles above and the hypaxial muscles below. And we're looking at the trunk muscles. And the main epaxial musculature is the dorsalis trunci. Okay. I think everyone probably found that one. I hope. Not too bad. And then if we look in the deep part of the dorsalis trunci, this is, you're going to have to spread it off to the side. This will show up quickly. It took a while to find it before. There we go, that's where it showed up. If you look in here, you'll see a muscle that's running basically from one vertebra to the next, from the transverse processes of one vertebra to the next. Do you see that? Yes, okay, give me some. So right in here, this guy. Okay. And that is called the interspinalis, and there's just a little short muscle that runs from each vertebra to the next, all the way along the side of the vaginal column. And that's part of also of the epaxial musculature. And then for the hypaxial musculature, and it's probably easier to see on this guy since he's so big, there's 3 layers that make up the wall of the abdomen, and these are pretty standard across tetrapods. They all have them. There's an outer layer, which has muscle fibers that run this way, caudally and ventrally, and this is called the external oblique. There's another layer deep to that. You can just see a little bit of it right there, and that's the internal oblique, and the fibers run anteriorly and ventrally. So external oblique like that, internal oblique here going that way. External oblique, internal oblique is this little guy right there, going this way. And then deep to both of those, there's muscle where the fibers run more or less across the body, and that's the transversus, or transversus abdominis muscle. That was right there. So that's the hypaxial musculature. There is anteriorly a band of this that you can see that's right where the fibers are running more or less straight forward and back in the ventral midline, and that's called the rectus abdominis, and it's very poorly developed in Necturus, hard to see. I'm trying to show you on that. Did we see it on here? I feel like I did see it somewhere in here. I'll just mention it. We'll see it much better in mammals, where it's really well developed. Okay, are we out of time, or do we have a moment? 2 more minutes. Perfect. Okay, so the other area that people have sort of everyone got to has been working on is this area underneath the chin. And basically in here, you've got a shallow sheet of musculature that runs across. Anteriorly, that is the intermandibularis muscle that's running from the mandible of one side to the mandible of the other. That's this guy. As you go a little bit further back, you get behind the angle of the jaw. You get into an area here where you're looking at something running from the hyoid of one side to the hyoid of the other, and that's the interhyoideus. That's here. And it's not clearly distinct from intermandibularis. You just have to look for that area where the jaw stops until you're back into interhyoideus. And then last but not least, this thin sheet at the very back of the throat region is called the sphincter coli, which literally means the sphincter of the throat. Okay, that's this guy here. And that forms the last little bit. If we peel back sphincter coli, what you can see is deep to it, there's another big muscle running along. Anyone remember what this one is? Starts with a B? Branchiohyoideus. This is the branchiohyoideus, and this is a big, very important muscle running from the top of the branchial arches down to the hyoid. So that's this guy here. And all of these ones we've just been looking at are all branchiomeric muscles, so they're the proper muscles of the gill arches. But then in the midline, running forward and back here, we see some of the hypobranchial musculature, which is axial muscles that are just running up into this branchial region. And in particular, this main pair that you see right here are the geniohyoids running from the chin back to the hyoid. Those would be these guys here and here, there. You see that? And then running from the hyoid back to the pectoral girdle in here, these big muscles that you see here and here are the rectus cervicis. Literally means the straight muscle of the cervical region or the neck. In there. Rectus cervicis. And then that would be, those are called post-hyoid because they're behind the hyoid. Geniohyoid is pre-hyoid. And there's a tiny little muscle that is almost impossible to see called the genioglossus as well. That runs from the side of the geniohyoid kind of up into the tongue region. But since Necturus is aquatic, it doesn't really have a well-developed tongue. They don't really have a well-developed genioglossus. And look for it. It's very unsatisfying even when you think you found it. It's just this tiny little thing. Shows up beautifully in that color picture book and in a way that I've never actually seen it in any real salamander. Where we'll see a genioglossus really well developed is in mammals, where they have a nice muscular tongue that can move around, and all those fibers run up into the tongue from the hyoid and form that fleshy part of the tongue that moves. Yeah. And I'm going to stop there for now, and we can